name's Todd Leonard, and I'm an ARC evangelist with Microsoft. And I'm here today at the world famous Betty Crocker Kitchens, where we've been looking at a very cool application that the folks here at General Mills have been producing around Betty Crocker. And I'm here with
Edgar Dorn. I'm a technical lead for the project that's working on the backend services for the application.
Excellent. So this is a killer WPF app, but it doesn't exist without your services. I mean, so can you tell me about what those services provide this application?
Well, when the application is doing any kind of communications to look for recipes or do any data retrieval, it talks to our services in the back end. We had a lot of complexity with it. Obviously, we had to deal with issues with load and how to manage, the number of users, how to deliver the recipes in a proper manner to the application, because those recipes change. We're always adding new recipes and modifying them. So we had to make sure that it was, scalable, and it was a system that would be able to update and keep the applications as fresh as possible at all times.
So, what technologies did you use to actually develop those services?
The backend stuff is written using Visual Basic.net, and it uses it's actually an XML distribution. So it's plain old XML data that we're actually sending back and forth. So we try to keep it as simple as possible, because our ultimate goal is for these services to be consumed by other applications, not only this one. So we wanted to make sure that it was compatible with things like Flash, utilities, Silverlight, anything like that. Okay. So we actually made it a little bit simpler than normal, because if we use WCF or something that actually require a little bit stricter or tighter copulation of data transfer, it would become a little bit too complex, so we try to keep it as simple as possible.
So is this actually a web service, or is this a REST API?
It's actually a web service in the way that it receives requests in an XML format, and it just responds back. There's no front end. You don't see a WSDL like a traditional web service, but everything else behind that, it's all on like a web service.
So so if I was another developer that was going to consume this without the WSDL, how do I actually engage your services?
We have documentation that shows you what the APIs are and the calls and what the packets will be received and sent back. Okay. So you'd have to actually look at it. It wouldn't be something that you can directly connect to it. You'd have to know what the request.
Do you have any handcrafted WSDL that you just give the developers to actually use?
Not at this time. We're planning on expanding the services and add a lot more features. And that's one of them, to be able to also connect to it in a different way, a variety of different ways, and also to be able to request a response. Right now the response is returned in XML. The ultimate goal is to be able to return the responses in a myriad of formats.
Right. So from a services perspective, given that this application can run in what I would refer to as cache mode, meaning I'm not connected to the internet. Right. So you must have both like real-time services and sort of asynchronous background feed services. Is that how it works?
The application should keep track of everything that it does, or it keeps track of everything that it does when it's offline. So in the offline mode, it knows that this set of events happen. There are certain things that you cannot do offline. For example, the searching is limited. You cannot add items to your particular recipe box, for example. Well, you can do it, but it won't do it until you connect back online. So it caches just the request, and then once the application knows that it's connected to the internet one more time, then it sends everything in, and it catches back up, and then everything is synchronized.
So now, from a recipe perspective, given that I'm probably not calling the website for every recipe I need, those are getting downloaded somehow or trickled down to me. Is that a web service invocation, or is that like a background service that the application is running to be pulling that down?
The application, when it starts retrieving some automatically in the background, asynchronously. Okay. So you won't see all the recipes available when you first load, unless you start doing searches, and then it starts grabbing everything that it can that you're requesting. It is, some of it is user driven, but most of it is actually happening in the back end asynchronously, so the user wouldn't even notice that it's happening. And then they store the recipe results locally for a limited amount of time, and then once those recipes expire, or whenever that date has passed beyond a day or two, whatever it is, it actually calls our service again and requests to make sure that the recipe is fresh, so that the items are the same as what we have in our service.
So how sophisticated are you? So for instance, maybe I'm busy and I'm just absolutely in love with this app, and I'm downloading and cooking stuff like gangbusters. your recipe expires. Now I've got it in my recipe box. Is the app sophisticated enough to go, okay, hold it, Todd has this one in his recipe box. I don't want to just sort of nuke it and have it go away. Is the app sophisticated enough to know to keep that one around for?
Yes, I mean, the items in your recipe box will always be there. If the recipe had changed at all, it would be reflected on what's in your recipe box.
Okay.
But the recipe box actually gets stored in our servers, so it gets sent to our systems. So any of that data will always be available. And then also it communicates with BettyCrocker.com. So if you add an item to your recipe box and then you navigate to BettyCrocker.com, that item will be in your recipe box at BettyCrocker.
Now what if I'm at home and I'm using this, right? And I love the app, so I'm over at Grandma's house, right? And I install it on Grandma's house, and I log in with my user ID. Do I get all the same stuff I had on my machine at home at Grandma's house now?
Well, not immediately. I mean, your personal items that are related to you, like a recipe box items or notes that you added to a recipe, those will be there. But it still trickles the recipes down when the first time it gets installed.
Okay.
So until those recipes will get loaded, you won't, it won't be identical, but it should be pretty close.
So the app is designed to support the fact that I'm there, and then when Grandma logs in, she's obviously got her own preferences, and that's maintaining throughout.
Right, and it knows that that you logged in and you were the person that that is at this time of the week you log out and come back. You log back in as Grandma, and then it will know that it gets you a different set of items. Recipe box items, notes, things like that.
Okay, so now from a technology perspective, so the services are being served up via IIS or?
Right.
Okay.
IIS 7 actually in this case.
Okay, cool. Is that running on Windows Server 2008 R2 or is that 2000?
I'm not 100%. Is it R2 on this one? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would expect it to be, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, no, fair.
That's more of our architecture team, so it becomes a little bit more beyond my scope.
Sure. So when you're retrieving those recipes, you're probably calling another set of services inside of Betty Crocker's infrastructure.
Right. The public recipe service actually talks to other internal recipes, and that's all done through our internal communication via WCF.
Okay.
So we try to keep the exterior stuff that was exterior facing as simple as possible. That's what we're using plain XML. But internally, we use WCF for all our communications.
Okay. So how long did it take you to develop this infrastructure?
Well, this is actually this has been going on for years because we built things on top of it. I mean, the original recipe storage system and image system has been around with our company for a long time.
But how about this particular API?
These are all brand new.
So 6 months, 3 months, how long?
I would say next week, maybe.
Oh, so it only took you 2 weeks to write?
You have it live.
Okay.
So I mean, how long did it take you once you you decided, okay, we're going to do this? We put together a team and we implemented. I'm just curious.
It became. It got kind of piggyback with other items that we were building along. So I think altogether it's been about a year since we've been working on the whole design and putting everything together to make sure that that the final goal was to be able to send back the recipe results.
So this is a good true services architecture, ultimately designed to be consumable from a variety of different systems, but this is sort of your flagship first application that consumes it.
Correct. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you.